Today, part 2 of the NBA Cup break mailbag for the Pacers. But before we talk more about centers and other available players, the Pacers made a move. Garrison Mathews signed to a standard deal. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl out. Why did they do that? We'll get to all of that today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Congrats. You made it through the weekend. Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin. And today, a lot to get to. We were going to do part 2 of the mailbag today, and we still will. We'll get to every question I was asked, which concerns more stuff about centers and non-guaranteed guys and their future and two-way conversions and things of that nature. But then the Pacers said, hey, let's throw something else in there. They did make a move on Thursday. Garrison Mathews signing a standard deal with the team. The roster spot he occupies is Jeremiah Robinson-Earl's, who was waived to make that happen. Why did they do that? Is that a good idea? And the sneaky thing that happened the last couple games that made that a more reasonable move for the Pacers is all coming today. And we'll actually start with that transaction. Robinson-Earl out, Mathews in. Look, I have to start with this. I talked about this a little already, and I really have been talking about it for a couple of days. I actually asked Rick Carlisle about his choice to play Mathews instead of Robinson-Earl in that game. I think against Denver was the first time it really happened last week, because that was noteworthy to me, right? To me, they were both kind of the guy competing for the 15th spot at that time. Robinson-Earl got 3 minutes and 12 seconds that night, all in garbage time, and then 2 DNPs in a row since. So he hasn't figured it all. Well, Mathews has started once and then played somewhat major minutes in another game. So there was some writing on the wall that the Pacers were leaning this way, but I said I would not do that as the Pacers. One, because Robinson-Earl's younger, and the Pacers' current age profile suggests that that's their current season and age profile suggests that could matter to them. And 2, I just think he's good. And he's obviously had some struggles putting the ball in the basket this season, but I thought, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, somebody I like a little more and would keep. And Mathews was quite good on his second 10-day and struggled a lot on his first one, to the point that he himself admitted he was surprised to get a second 10-day, right? He went 2 for 13 and didn't really contribute in a lot of other ways, right? So I said I would not have done this as the Pacers. That said, it's very easy to explain, and I completely understand. I get why some people were like, I can't, I wouldn't have done this as the Pacers, or like, dang, that stinks. I was very surprised many people said, I don't get this at all. Like, that really surprised me, because you saw what Mathews did on the second 10-day, right? It was like a totally different player. He had the 15-point game where he made all of his threes. On the 10-day in total, he shot 47% from deep, 8.5 points a game. I'm not saying he's giving you much of anything else. The only game he's logged more than 1 in any stat besides made threes is when he had 3 rebounds in Chicago in that game that he started. Every other time it's been 1 assist or 1 rebound or 1 steal or whatever. He's not doing a lot besides making threes, but making threes is in fact super valuable in the NBA. And the game I always point to with him is where I noticed he was really providing something beyond just made shots, is when they beat Chicago in that tight game where Siakam hit the game winner. Mathews only played 8 minutes that night. He went 0 for 3 from deep. If you have a chance or you have the capabilities, go back and watch that game, because something else happened in that game that really made Mathews' spacing stand out. And that is that Jay Huff went crazy in the first quarter of that game, right? Jay Huff had 14 points to start the game. He had the first 14 points of the game for the Pacers. And the Bulls just left him wide freaking open the whole time. They did not care about him in the pick and pop. They did not care about him when he was spacing, and he made them pay, and he splashed in shots. Garrison Mathews came in the game, and the Bulls were like, do not leave that guy at all. And that's because prior to his Pacers struggles, which did happen, again, Mathews admitted to these. This is not some surprise to anyone. He was a lights-out three-point shooter, well over 40% across his last 2 years with Atlanta, and in his time with the Hawks dating back to 2022-23, he was at 41.3%. With the Wizards to start his career, he was at 39%. So a down season and a half in Houston, but in general, a 38 to 40% three-point guy throughout his whole career on pretty good volume. Per 100 possessions, he takes a healthy number of threes. And that's all he does. He shoots a lot. He took 5 threes a game last year in under 20 minutes a game. He shoots a lot. That's valuable. Like it's very easy for me to sit here and explain to you why they'd want a shooter on the team. And they're last in 3-point percentage. I think they might not be last anymore. For a while, they were last. They've shot better of late to the point that they may not be anymore. But it's very obvious why this Pacers team needs some 3-point shooting. All right. As of tonight, the Portland Trailblazers, who lost to the Pelicans, have fallen below the Pacers. The Pacers now 29th in 3-point percentage. That's the Garrison Mathews effect right there. That's a joke. To be clear, I can very easily understand why a team would value shooting over Robinson-Earl, who, look, did a lot of great things. He was an awesome rebounder. I thought he defended pretty well. He was just, very low mistake kind of guy on offense, never got in the way of anybody else, just knew how to play, right? That's all very valuable stuff. I know that's like a lazy way to describe a player when you like them, but I thought he did a lot of that stuff very well. His turnover rate was really low, but he never made anything. 44.3% true shooting is ghastly. 34.9% from the field, 24.2% from deep. Those are also, like Mathews, well below his career numbers, which is why I thought maybe they'd keep him and just try to see if they could get Robinson-Earl to be a little better. But I do understand them choosing the shooter. That's not hard to explain. And the notes I took to kind of explain it is like this. Shooters can fit in more lineups, and they can the way they help is really straightforward. Spacing, shooting. Great, got it. Right? Garrison Mathews running around a pin down. Defenders are occupying him, even if he doesn't have the ball. So Robinson-Earl can do more things. There are more, if you listed out their skills, Robinson-Earl's would be longer. He can do more things. But the chance that Robinson-Earl is subtractive because he doesn't add spacing or there's not as many ways he can impact is way higher than Mathews. So he can be subtractive and he can do more. Kind of pick your flavor between those kind of things. I understand it, even though it's not what I would have done. I don't think it's totally unreasonable that the Pacers will do this. And, by the way, the contracts in the NBA don't even become guaranteed for another month. So if Mathews continues to play, up and down or has another stretch like his first 10 days, which is quite poorly, and I would guess that will not be the case. It's very hard to be a hardship player and immediately have to come in and produce. I would guess he plays closer to these last 10 days. Maybe not quite that hot from deep, but closer to that. Regardless, if he doesn't play well or add anything besides shooting, they could just cut him in January, right? So this is still sort of a short-term thing anyway, but at least I get it. Now, here's the thing that changed things to me, because everything I just said, I could have said over the weekend or, 5, 6, 7 days ago, whatever. Here's what changed. Ethan Thompson joined the team. And that's not to say Ethan Thompson should be expected to keep doing this. In fact, I would actually caution against that. I mean, Taylor Peter was balling in the preseason, and people were talking about him being in the rotation and being the backup point guard. He's done hardly anything in the NBA since then. That's not to say he's been bad. It just hasn't really happened. Thompson's had 2 really good games in a row. And if he keeps it up, that's awesome. And he's played very well. But the things he has done and showed in his brief spurts are a lot of the skills that Robinson-Earl provides. If Thompson can keep doing that, they have a way to get a 25, 26-year-old off-ball guard / wing guy on the floor and have Mathews on the team. And so they didn't have a hardship anymore. I think Thompson's emergence made it a little more comfortable and a little easier for them to say, okay, let's pick the shooter instead. So again, I said that I would have done the opposite of what they did do. This isn't like a major consequence thing, but I get it. And Ethan Thompson makes it way more plausible. Okay, let's do the mailbag questions that you guys have for me today. And I had to start with a faux pas from the last mailbag, where the first question I got from Indy Pacers was, do we want GTA still? And I thought he was talking about Grand Theft Auto because I'm dorky and way too online. And by that, I mean I'm way too online with gaming. He meant Jose Alvarado, who that's his nickname that I just completely forget exists, Grand Theft Alvarado, because he gets a lot of McConnells pressuring full court. That report to me, which if you don't remember, that came from Jake Fisher pretty early in the season. That read more to me like a guy they pursued as like maybe he could be gotten for a cheap price when they were just desperate for a point guard. But they did try to get a third point guard for a while, right? In camp with Campaign and DeLon Wright, and then Monte Morris was in and out, and then he was in for the regular season, but he wasn't very good. So there was like a month and a half where they were clearly searching for a third point guard. Maybe they will again at some point, although Quentin Jackson, we'll get to him later, might be back tonight. That might smooth this over. I read that as more like in that stretch they were considering such a thing, but now that they're healthier and we'll see how Jackson plays, I think that the likelihood of them pursuing something like that is less, but maybe not zero. He's a good player. He'd be a good third guard or fourth guard or fifth guard or whatever he would be to have on the team, and is on a cheap contract. So a totally reasonable pursuit, and I think his contract makes him a reasonable add at this season still. But I think the odds that they would want him compared to what it would have been earlier in the season seem to be much less. Okay, centers, questions about fandom, assessing injuries, things of that nature, all coming up here as we continue the mailbag on Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, we got to talk about two great groups of people. And first up is Zocdoc. It's 2025, almost 2026. The days of waiting for someone to become a full-blown emergency to see a doctor, they're over. No more walking it off for 6 months. No more pretending that weird shoulder stiffness is just sleeping wrong. It's time to take your health seriously, and Zocdoc makes it easier than ever because staying healthy is more than hitting the gym or eating right. It's about actually getting things checked out when something feels off. They make scheduling easy. Real appointment times are listed, including on same-day visits. No more back-and-forth calls, waiting weeks to be seen. It's super helpful for those routine checkups or little issues. You can compare providers and read patient reviews. It's super simple to keep your health a priority with a quick, clean, honest app. It helps you with everything. Stay on top of your health before something becomes a bigger problem, and stop putting off your doctor's appointments. Get the care you need. Go to Zocdoc.com/LockedOnNBA to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA, Zocdoc.com/LockedOnNBA. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Our second listen, Locked On Bucks. Another Giannis report. Chris Haynes with the latest on Giannis saying to keep it basketball and a meeting with his teammates, apparently, per that report. That made me laugh. It reminded me a lot of Victor Oladipo back in late 10s, whatever, when he said, I can't control this. And I thought, yes, you were like the only one who actually can. Good times. Okay, Locked On Bucks for your second listen. They had a nice win over the Celtics earlier today as well. Let's keep going through mailbag questions. Another repeat questioner. Thank you. Crystal Marie at Crime Marie 531 says favorite centers that have been mentioned in targets. And this is from her. I was with you on that they should have paid Miles, but now with all the injuries and everything this season, I'm like being in the tax or second apron. If they didn't do that, is it accidentally the right move? Yeah, they would have been over maybe depending on how much his deal would have been, pretty dang close to the aprons. And ironically, the trade they made for Huff after losing Miles hard capped them at the first apron, right? Which they're currently $12.2 million away from. Obviously, Miles makes a lot more than that, but they would have different salaries on their team if they had Miles Turner. Who knows if they even keep Isaiah Jackson if they re-sign Miles, although he was a restricted free agent. Regardless of that part, he who knows how he would have played without Haliburton, even if he was on the Pacers. We're not here to talk about Miles Turner. Of the rumored targets, I think the only name that has from a super concrete report was Daniel Gafford, who is a good player and would fit pretty well. There's been some people keep talking about Zubac. He's really good. Ivica Zubac is really, really good. He's one of the 5 best defensive centers in the NBA to me, maybe even a smaller number than that. His salary isn't like unobtainably high for the Pacers. It would take, like basically any player, a couple players making a mid-sized salary to get him. That would be awesome. Here's the thing. I keep seeing people being like, what about this guy? What about that guy? And it's guys that like aren't available. Like they're just not, their team's not going to trade them because they're good for their current team. That's why they're on the team that they're on. Khalil Ware is balling, guys. Khalil Ware is like untouchable levels of balling for the Heat. Like he's been so good, for example, right? There's been a couple more of those, some of them in the star variety, for example. But of the names I've seen that are like, I guess I get why they could be available, Zubac is probably the one that I think is the best and would be a good fit for this Pacers team. But the Clippers don't have their pick this year. Their incentive to actually tear down their team maybe isn't as high as some people think, which I suppose I understand why people would naturally think that because they have a terrible record. But without your pick, you want to win. Like you want to get good players on your team, and trading away good players is kind of the antithesis of that. So there's a couple of guys that I've seen that I'm like, yeah, that's interesting, I guess. But none of, I think the rumored ones are going to be the rumored ones because there's such a natural fit between that team to potentially move them and the Pacers to potentially acquire them. And a lot of the floated names, I'm like, that doesn't make sense for the team sending the player to the Pacers. But as more will come up, this is always how it goes. These cycles are always, evolve and change as teams' records change. Andrew Smith at Schwand _ the Conch. I hope I got that right. Says, after assessing where the Pacers are on the year with the injuries combined with the absence of Tyrese Haliburton, what key fundamental things we need to lock in on our rosters as we head into the 2026-27 season? Well, ironically, the one they just did, shooting. And they've been so hurt that it's exposed kind of the limits they have with their shooting as a team. without Haliburton, and that's been known, right? Every time he's out, they've struggled to shoot in past seasons, and that's two things. That's one, he's very good at setting up his teammates and getting them open shots, and that includes threes, right? Tyrese Haliburton passing you the ball means you're going to be more open for a three, or you're going to get the ball quickly, and your defender's not going to be as close to you. You're going to get it in your shooting pocket, so the time it takes to actually release the shot's a little quicker. All these little things that matter a lot. His teammates shoot better from three. He also makes 40-ish% off the dribble. And that's also a good way to improve your team's three-point percentage, is to have a guy with that kind of threat level at any time. And I think the Pacers are looking for ways to improve their shooting. It's been dreadful this year. I mean, think back to October, early November. They couldn't make anything. And I get that every team is looking for shooting, and improving your offensive efficiency is like a never-ending goal for every team in the NBA all the time. But for the Pacers specifically, I think they certainly thought going into this year they would not look this bad, right? And they still need to – they're going to be 18 minutes a game next year when Tyrese Haliburton's not in the game, and who knows what level he's even playing at. You need spacing. You need your offense to hum in those minutes. Shooting is a huge thing, and they have not been good at it. I know that's not a surprise to anyone, but and some of it is guys who shoot really well with Haliburton, or can shoot better than they have, really missing. Nesmith has been. I mean, you could just go through their team and look at 3-point percentage. Like, their top 2 3-point percentage guys right now are 4 games of Ethan Thompson and 5 games of Quentin Jackson. Mathurin's been shooting great. That's a huge deal. Almost 7 attempts per game. He's at 43%. That's very significant. Everybody else who has taken a lot has either not played enough games or has not made a lot, right? 7.5 attempts per game for Nesmith. His percentage is dipped. That's a volume plus difficulty of shots thing. Siakam's about at league average on 5 attempts a game. Same for Andrew Nembhard. Everybody else is at 32% or worse. Everybody. That includes guys that there was hope they could shoot better, like Ben Shepherd, like Jarris Walker. Garrison Mathews might shoot better at some point. He's at 32%. Jay Huff's at 31.5%, even after being very, very warm shooting of late. Obi Toppin, granted, in 3 games, was dreadful from 3. I don't think that's a thing that's like going to fade away or anything, but like, they have shown some flimsy with their shooting in a way that is something that I think they would like to poke at or figure out. Quiet change from their early season success in this way. Their rebound rates got not very good this year. Their rebound percentage right now as a team is 23rd in the NBA. They were awesome on the glass to start the season, and it felt like it was going to be a priority for them because of the way they wanted to play. They're 19th in defensive rebound rate, and even worse on the offensive glass at 20th. Like, they're just not hitting the glass in the way that they maybe hoped. That's another, I think rebounding is an overrated at times stat, but something they could stand to be better at. And that's just as much on their bigs as it is their perimeter guys. And those stood out as things coming into this year that were going to be huge. But I don't think people have talked enough about the rebounding shift that this team has kind of gone through. But that's their biggest, like, major differences, or things that were thought to be different from last year, that heading into next season, I think that's where they've looked at this team and gone, okay, this team hasn't been able to make shots to the level that they hoped, right? Even now, after a dreadful stretch of defense, at one point, the Pacers are at 19th. Like, that's not good, but that's close to league average. Like, I thought that's where they'd be on defense. I don't think much on the defensive end for this team. Granted, it's come with extreme peaks and valleys, has been way different than I maybe thought it would be for them, but their offense has been a lot worse, and their possession battle stats are maybe a little different, I guess is the best way to put it, than I thought they would be. Their turnover rate is actually better than I thought without Haliburton, and their rebound rate has dropped to worse, and that's why their offense is 28th, right? So anything that can either help them in the possession battle, that stuff's this question is framed of the Tyrese Haliburton is out, and what have we learned with the injuries? That stuff will matter next year, because there will be, like I said, 20, 18, 16, whatever minutes in a game where Haliburton doesn't play. But even when he does play, his quality will be different. So finding ways to improve these margins is still critical things to find out in the final 60 games, 58, whatever it is, this season. And a lot of their weak points have come on the offensive side. So figuring out ways to give themselves more possessions, to find more efficient shooting, whether that's creating those shots or making those shots, I think is the priority when it comes to lineups and adding players and just finding success for this group. We'll see what comes out of the break, because last year they really turned things around in a similar way. Okay, one more segment here today with, I believe, 4 more questions to go, although some of them not necessarily going to take me the longest to answer. We'll get to all that coming up here to close out today's Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, I got to talk about two great groups of people. First up is Quo, new year, new systems. And this time is the time, when a lot of us look at the messier parts of running a business and think there has to be a better way, and there is. Today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. If you're ready to make your workday smoother and keep customers connected without the headaches, Quo makes upgrading your setup faster and easier than ever. A streamlined system makes such a big difference when communicating with customers. Calls, texts, and voicemails in one clean view keeps it all organized. You can share everything on one team number so nothing gets missed. They have AI summaries. It's like having an assistant to keep track of every detail. It's all surprisingly easy that works from a phone or a computer. Make this year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. I also need to quickly talk about FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, suddenly everything feels different. Colts have felt that a lot recently. That is what makes betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is the best. When the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the moment flips after a turnover, FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can even bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you're going to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Hey, you should consider joining the Everydayers Club. It's a new thing we're doing here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Access to an exclusive Discord, plus ad-free episodes of every single podcast, and plenty more. The free daily show, of course, right here is not going anywhere. Just for those who want to take it to the next level, you can learn more on the LockedOnPacers.com/Everydayer Club. Okay, a couple people have already signed up, which I didn't even announce it, but when those signups came in, so thank you for that. A couple more questions to get to today. Some of them are just very philosophical and interesting. Wesley Roth says, why is it that fans that have the least educated or least thoughtfully considered opinions are also the most passionate about said opinions? Great philosophical question, and I also find this to be fascinating. I forget what class it was in college when we learned a lot about the bias at the tail ends of survey results that are similar to this. Like a lot of passionate people answer surveys or like have their opinions on things. When it comes to sports specifically, it's because fans are passionate. It's what fan is, right? Now, when it comes to opinions and their education level on them, that is a fascinating part of this. Like, what makes somebody so clear that they're right? Look through the responses today to my tweet when I broke the news this morning about the Garrison Mathews transaction, about how split people are and confidently like, what are the Pacers doing? This is so stupid. And like, oh, this totally makes sense. I was looking for this coming, blah, blah, blah. It's like, and some of them, I'm like, have you watched Garrison Mathews? Like your description you just gave of what he gave the Pacers is completely wrong. Or like, have you watched Jeremiah Robinson-Earl? That doesn't match the player that they've had for, the last month and a half. And I don't really get that. I think people, I mean this sometimes, and I hate to be mean. I think some people really just want to hear themselves talk sometimes, and that's not a bad thing. I also like to hear myself talk. I've been talking to myself for 24 straight minutes into this microphone right now. I think that that's part of it, but I think that that's just kind of human nature. And I do think this is true as well. You can't shut down somebody for just believing something in their gut. I think too often people get away like don't like when people have that. That's fine. I have that a lot where it's just like, this is just what I believe, even if there's like actual data or stuff I've researched that disagrees with it. That's fine to think that. But I do think it's clear in arguments like this that you have to say that. Like someone will say something to me and I'll respond and be like, I don't think that's right. Here's why, blah, blah. And then they'll go back and forth. And then sometime like 4 or 5 posts in, they'll go, well, I just feel better about this or that. I'm like, just say that at the start. Then there's no point. You just wasted our time. Like, I wouldn't have tried to convince you if you just feel that way. So it is very interesting that I do agree that this is true sometimes. People who don't know things still believe that they know. And I'm that way too. The Dunning-Kruger effect is certainly real on a lot of things. I am certainly that way on a lot of things, but I think it's just really a human nature thing, especially when it comes to sports. Q with the Quentin Jackson Santa picture at Pacers Legend said, would you rather have Daniel Gafford or Walker Kessler? Who would we give up in a trade for them? Of those two guys, just straight up in a vacuum, step away from the salary cap and trade values. I mean, Walker Kessler's better, right? He's a better player. He's a really good defender. He's like kind of working in a jumper to his game. He was shooting threes at some points this season, did some stuff with Team USA in the past that suggested maybe that's something in his game. Maybe it's not. Who knows? I quite like him as a player. He's better than Gafford for the same reasons. He is going to be harder to get, right? It would take more stuff to get him. As I said yesterday, when I do these mailbags, I try to let you guys hear my thinking at the same time as the answer. I just think that's more interesting. That's how I've always done it. But I forgot to open Walker Kessler's contract page. So you get to see me Googling stuff as I'm talking. That is what makes this a little different is Kessler's contract is a rookie deal still. It's pretty small. His cap hit this year is less than $5 million. And then he's a restricted free agent with a tiny cap hold, in the summer. Whereas Gafford, his contract's not high. In fact, his extension starts next year, where his contract goes up. But his salary this year is only $14.3 million. So in terms of what they'd have to give up, not a lot, right? I would imagine, unfortunately for this player, that Isaiah Jackson would be a natural salary to include in a trade for a center making this much or less because they wouldn't have room for, his, like if his role drops a lot, his salary all of a sudden becomes too big. We'll talk about this next week with Rep Bauer, by the way. So I would imagine he'd be in it, but the Pacers being 4.5, a little more net million from the tax, they basically would have to get to the player's salary minus $4.5 million. So Daniel Gafford, they'd have to send out, $10 million. Isaiah Jackson's not enough. So you're going to need $3 more million, whether that's another player, whether that's another, couple minimum guys or whatever, or the Jazz are adding in something else and the Pacers send out bigger salaries. With Kessler, it's super easy. It's literally just like anybody. But that's kind of the contract package it would take. And I don't know what I would with Gafford because of his health, how strong of a first rounder to give up. He's probably with 4 years on his deal, all coming in his prime. A first round pick for him is a reasonable return, but what strongness of first makes sense? The one the Mavs sent the Wizards for him was very late, like late first. I think that is probably reasonable if the contract's right. Kessler would take like multiple firsts, one of them being potentially very good, right? Or a stud level or good level prospect along the way. So take your pick with those potential price points for those guys who you'd rather have. But they're both natural. Like I said with Mathews earlier, I would be able to explain and understand acquiring either of them as the Pacers. They make good sense. They're good players. Popular basketballers at Adrian_Drysdale, funny, says, favorite former Pacers player to interview? That is a great question. This one I should have come prepped with more fun or easy answers. I mean, there's been a lot. Like the group they've had since Haliburton got here's had a lot of fun personalities that have come in and out. Buddy Hield is a delight to talk to. He's just funny and light, and like he doesn't he doesn't rely on media tropes as much in his answers. Like they're actually a combination of what he knows he's supposed to say and what he believes. It's very funny to hear him talk about that. But like if he's actually upset about something or a situation, like he'll say it, right? I really appreciate that. But his lightheartedness was also extremely enjoyable. Victor Oladipo, for all the things that went poorly for him on the way out of Indiana, was a quite fun guy to interview. He was a very joyous dude who, really radiated around to everybody. What other former? I'm trying to think of other former. Domas was very insightful as well in his time here. There have been a lot of fun guys, honestly. Corey Joseph was a pretty smiley, interesting guy to talk to. There have been a lot. There's truly been a lot. Literally the current group they have. If you ask me this question in 6 years, if I'm somehow still doing this, I guarantee I'll be like, oh yeah, that Haliburton team, like everybody, like all of them, right? Top to bottom, all of them. Jay Huff is becoming a very funny interviewee as well. But there's been some good ones of late. Last one comes from Blue Sky. I said this wrong. Enuigrous. Who I did say in their question, why aren't you taking questions on Blue Sky? I will next time. The next mailbag will be a Blue Sky one. That's how the alternations are going to go. But I will answer this question. They said, do Robinson-Earl, Tony Bradley, or I don't realize who this third player is. I'm just realizing I probably should have checked who, and I'm assuming this is supposed to be Garrison Mathews, have potential for next year? Or are we just taking who's of the value for them for this year? And then Quentin Jackson and Ethan Thompson need to be on standard contracts next year, correct? Okay. A couple layers to all of that. One is do any of those players have potential for next year? I mean, yes and no. I mean, Robinson-Earl's off the team now, but Rick Carlisle hinted that he might go to the Boom. We'll see. He can't sign a two-way. He has too many years in the NBA. I mean, all of them have proved. All three of these guys have proven that, like, in a pinch, they can play. Like, you've seen when you see vets who can't produce, like they just can't or shouldn't play. And Robinson-Earl's only 25. Bradley and Mathews are in the like late 20s, probably like last couple good years of their career stage for that level of role player. Can they figure for future seasons? Yeah, it's totally possible, right? I think Tony Bradley is like a fine third center or fourth center if that's what he would be. And he played in the finals, and people were like, "Yep, that makes sense." I'm not saying that's like an ideal outcome or anything like that, but he showed to have a role in that way. Mathews can shoot like that. In theory, has potential to be on any team, including one that is good or bad or figuring things out. So the answer is probably yes for those two. Robinson-Earl probably less now because he's not on the team. I should have answered this one at first. The last two, Quentin Jackson and Ethan Thompson, need to be on standard contracts next year, right? I mean, okay, let's pump the brakes on Thompson, not because I don't think he's good. He's played very well in these two games, but we don't know. I mean, we got to see more. Again, I'm not saying this to slam on Talon Peter, who balled out, by the way, for the Boom last night. He had 24 points for Noblesville, but like, I got a freaking comment comparing him to Anthony Edwards after a preseason game. Like he only has made more than one shot in one game, right? Like let's let the two-way dust settle, but obviously very encouraging early returns. If that continues to happen, they should explore this. I don't think people realize this though. His two-way deal that he signed is 2 years. They have Ethan Thompson under contract next year right now on the Pacers. So if he burns through his active NBA days this season, yeah, of course they'll have to consider converting him if they want him to keep playing, and he's 26 and young and interesting. But that he is less so relevant to me than Q, who Quentin Jackson cannot be on a two-way contract next season. He will be out of eligibility for that, despite him clearly being an NBA quality player. To me, I thought he might get a standard this year. I think the same. I said this after the last mailbag, but the same thing with him that, especially good news, by the way, he played for the Boom last night as well. He's questionable in Philly, so it sounds like his return could be soon. Look, man, he's like, if he keeps playing well, yes, he's a standard level player. He already is. He's good. The same thing is true of him that I just said of Thompson, though, in one way. It's like he is under contract with the Pacers now. The two-way is a contract with the Pacers. So, yeah, it will be a time where a longer discussion about what they should do with Quentin Jackson's contract should come up. It's probably after the trade deadline. But until he's out of days, they can just play him every night. He's under contract now, but he can't be on a two-way next year. If they believe he can be their third point guard and sixth or seventh give him a standard. And he fits their style and he fits their team personality, and he's a good player. If they believe that that's something that's warranting of a standard deal next year, they should do it. And I certainly would strongly consider it as the Pacers. And that is this mailbag. Next week, I'm skipping too far ahead. Tonight/tomorrow, the Pacers play the Sixers. We'll talk about that one for Saturday's show. Then they play the Wizards Sunday. So we'll hop right into next week with games. And then part 2 of the cup break that every team has, including teams that played deeper into the competition, because the championship game is next week. So next week, we'll do our trade deadline preview, a general kind of overview with a little more stats for this team. So Kyle Taylor and Rhett Bauer are going to join us, and they start playing again on Thursday. Can they keep cleaning up against bad teams? We'll know next week. Thank you all so much for listening today and this week through a week of the team not playing very much. Back tomorrow talking more Pacers playing a game. Till then, everybody, have a wonderful day.